In a recent interview with the Wall Street Journal, Edwards said, and I'm quoting here, "I didn't watch basketball back in the day, so I can't speak on it. They say it was tougher back then, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one who really had skill, you know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill, unquote. Wilbon, you hate when people ignore history, but you love the Ant-Man. What do you make of these comments?
Well, the comments are somewhere between naive and stupid. And if I was in a locker room and I saw the Ant-Man, because he is chatty and he's approachable and he's not a guy, this comment makes it sound like he knows everything. But if you said, Ant-Man, sit here and look at this video for a second of a guy named Irvin Johnson, and then watch a guy named Bird, and watch a guy named Isaiah Thomas, and watch Reggie Miller, and watch John Stockton and Karl Malone and David Robinson. Watch these people. Ant-Man will go, okay, never mind. I shouldn't have gone there. Because that's just sort of who he seems to be. Kevin Garnett, who is much more important than either one of us talking about this, said, wait a minute. And he started to describe the varied skills that all these people had, including skills they don't even have today, like post play, mid post or low post. And Kevin Garnett was like, stop, please stop now. And he pointed all these things out. So Ant-Man will have to get over it. And I expect sort of a take it back.
So Ant-Man. Ant-Man. This is Sports Bucks in the most latest episode. And this was Ant-Man made this comment maybe about a week or so ago about there was no skill in the NBA other than Michael Jordan. And this show is, I've taken some time to let this kind of marinate and sort of not really, was going to wait to do this show and comment on it once everything kind of sort of dried up a little bit, honestly. And I feel like we are in the midst right now of the disrespectful era. And I mean disrespectful era of sports. And I don't know why this is, but mindset right now of the youth, where for whatever reason, they believe that their era and their time is greater than previous generations. I'm going to stop this music for a second because I want you guys to really, really be able to hear me. There's an old Bible verse that says there's nothing new under the sun. I've even seen people that I respect, I watch some of their shows, say that they actually agreed with Ant-Man. And I would have to wonder and ask the question, how could you agree with Ant-Man in that foolish statement? Only in the NBA do you routinely see this new generation disrespect the previous generation. It only happens in basketball. It's only you don't even see it in college basketball. You don't see it. All you see it is in the NBA. And this is a more recency thing where you see this level of disrespect taking place. There's a culprit, I believe, that's kind of behind this. And social media has been part of the problem, or a big part of the problem. But what I see is that there is a movement that has been orchestrated behind the scenes to disrespect the previous generation so that you can push up the current flavor that is playing right now. And this is the generation of appreciation trophies, where we could say old head in my day, but the fact that we actually think that there was no skill in the NBA other than Michael Jordan is beyond ridiculous. So I'm going to go ahead and really get into the show, but I'm titling this show For the Love of the Game, man. We got to stop, because this disrespect is absolutely asinine. And I'm going to go into this today on this new episode of Sports Bucks with Steve. Stay tuned.
Sports Bucks with Steve takes a deeper dive into the world of sports and the impact of money, fan debates, current sporting news, and offers financial tips. Coach Steve is a certified financial fiduciary and wealth coach who specializes in retirement income tax-free strategies for individuals and business owners throughout the country.
So let's get into it. This is obviously Sports Bucks, and we were talking a little bit about For the Love of the Game, we got to stop. And I say this because we've had a serious social media where you see these former athletes are now, talking about the previous generation of athletes and the lack of humility and the lack of appreciation for the greats that played the game before is very disturbing, and it's unbelievable, to be honest with you. I have gotten myself involved in several Twitter X debates with with people who have literally no sense. I'm going to give you guys an example of an argument that I had. I showed with proof that Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls beat more 60-win teams out of the 4 60-win teams that was beaten in the finals. Jordan's Bulls did it 3 out of the 4, where there was matchups of 2 teams that had won 60 games apiece in that season from the East and the West. It's only happened 4 times, by the way, in the history of the game. The first meeting was, I believe it was in '85, between the Lakers and the Celtics. So the others was the Bulls, Suns, Bulls, I believe Bulls and Sonics, and also the Bulls and the Jazz. So 3 out of the 4 times that these teams have faced, where 60-win teams have played each other, Michael Jordan and the Bulls were 3-0 out of the 4. I had someone tell me it is more impressive. I want y'all to hear this. It was more impressive. Why is that more impressive than LeBron James beating the 60-win Atlanta Hawks with 4 All-Stars? And he argued with me over and over and over again about the validity of his statement, saying that that was weak, they were weak era. And let me explain something to you. He probably isn't old enough to even have seen Jordan play, let alone the teams he went up against. But he's arguing with me about Jordan and the Bulls had weak competition. Then he messed up. He says the West had 3 teams make the playoffs that year that were under 500. So now his argument was it was more impressive that LeBron and the Cavs beat a 60-win led 4 All-Stars from the Hawks, who won 60 games that season. The Cavs actually finished in second with 53 wins. Everybody else was under 50 in the East. But that was his argument. So he goes on to say that the Bulls beat what Michael and them faced was not the same. Again, this goes back to, for the love of the game, we got to stop. Because this was actually not true. So the Bulls that season won 72 games, right? In the East, every team finished over 500. So the argument, I thought he faced bad teams, because his argument was, oh, the West only, they had 3 teams that didn't finish under 500. Actually, in the West that season, the Sonics won 64 games. The Spurs, I believe, finished with 59. There was only one team that season that was the Sacramento Kings that finished 39-43. That was a young team with Weber and the guys getting to learn how to play the NBA game. And then the other team finished at 500. I believe it was the Suns that season. Everybody else had a winning record. So because you think that a era was weaker because you never saw Michael Jordan come up short, you think that he didn't face great competition. When I just showed you or told this guy that they won 60 games, beat teams with 60 wins, the most of anybody was Michael Jordan's Bulls. They faced the most 60-win teams in the finals. 3 of his 6 championships were against teams that had won 60-plus games. So now, when I examined his argument, which I knew he had messed up, he wanted to use that as an argument against Jordan, saying they were weak. But then, when the evidence was revealed, well, hold on. LeBron James and that Cleveland Cavaliers team that won 53 games and beat the 4 stars from Atlanta, who were marginal all-stars. They were rewarded for a bad conference, and they overachieved, where the Cavs, honestly, underachieved. With LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love only winning 53 games. They underachieved. And so they beat a team by the Hawks that was led by Paul Millsap, who averaged 16.7 points a game, was the leading scorer for the Hawks. Jeff Teague finished with 15.9, Al Horford 15.2, DeMar Carroll finished with 12.7, and Kyle Korver with 12.1. So they were a balanced team, but there was no superstar. This guy says that was more impressive than Michael Jordan and the Bulls beating Karl Malone and John Stockton. Karl Malone, the NBA's 3rd leading scorer in the history of the game. John Stockton, the #1 assist man by a large margin in the history of the NBA, Hall of Famer. Gary Payton, the glove, Hall of Famer. Sean Kemp, who was an amazing basketball player, and a loaded Sonics team that had Detlef Schrempf, who was what you call a stretch small forward who could take the ball off the dribble. He could also hit the 3. He had a lot to his game. Hersey Hawkins was a nice spot-up shooter, because they don't know, because they're not old enough. But there has to be a time when you respect your elders. This generation is cooked, man, because there's a lack of respect. And guess what happens when I show him that the same Cavs team where you were trying to say Jordan faced weak competition, there was 3 teams that finished, 2 that had losing records in the East in 2014-15 season, or 15 season. Had losing records that made the playoffs in the East. 2 of the 3, and 1 was a 500 team. So guess what happens? He runs away. He runs away. because now the truth has been revealed and you are a liar. So I want to share something with you guys. I want to share an interview with another guy who clearly thinks that, who does not argue in the realm of reality. But first, I want to share something with you. This whole thing, and I want Kevin Garnett. I won't play his video because there's just too much profanity, and this YouTube may block it, so you never know. But before I do that, let me just share with you guys a real quick commercial. And I want to show you some information about what Anthony Edwards, who started this whole thing off by stating that there was no talent, which is, he never heard of Magic Johnson. He's never heard of Rod Strickland, who Kyrie Irving modeled his game after. He never heard of Nick Van Exel. He's never heard of Stevie Franchise. He's never heard of all these other players that were before him. Kevin Johnson, who was a monster and dunked on Olajuwon. This is the ignorance. This is a known fact that David Stern, along with Adam Silver, watered down this modern basketball by allowing traveling, carrying, because they want freedom of movement. So freedom of movement allows for greater numbers. So as I said in my last video that you guys can go back and watch, and Am I Dreaming with Steph Curry and the Olympics, because of this freedom of movement, there's not as much interior defense. There's a 3-second rule in the paint. So now the numbers are inflated, almost akin to the NFL's passing game today. You could barely play defensive back. So the numbers are inflated. In the dead ball era, where there was defense being played, when Michael Jordan was in the league, it was much harder to score. Basketball has never been a team game where it's individuals just going one-on-one. So when people say, oh, he didn't face this guy, or Gary Payton shut him down, George, that's not true either. Because George Karl admits in The Last Dance that he should have played Gary Payton earlier. But guess what? Gary Payton had the help of Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan came back in games 4 and 5. And Michael Jordan had an off game in game 4, but then came back and was 11 for 22. It was his help that let him down in those other games before they wrapped it up in game 6. Scottie Pippen, who LeBron James fans swear by, was 4 for 17 in game 4 and 5 for 20 in game 5. Can we add that up? He was 9 for 37 from the field. That would have helped them win that game. But he wasn't that great. So they trapped Jordan, and they used different people on him. Gary Payton did not shut Mike down. That's another La Media lie. And the proof of that, game 6, Jordan got off. And in the very next year, when the Bulls came into Key Arena in Seattle, which was a much anticipated game, Michael Jordan scored almost half of the Bulls, I think it was 94 points, where they beat the Sonics 94-89, and Jordan had 45. So much for stopping Jordan with Gary Payton. But, so let's go to it. I'm going to show you play this quick little ad called the Super Roth, sponsored by Fig Wealth Partners.
It's a bird!
It's a plane!
No, it's Super Roth!
Okay, a gimmicky opening for a commercial about Super Roth Universal Life Insurance, but I'm sure it got your attention. Now, what is a Super Roth, you ask? It's a permanent indexed universal life insurance that's totally liquid and easily accessible once it matures. Can be used to supplement retirement savings or a death benefit, or both. Has no income or contribution limit. Has no 5-year rule like Roth IRAs. Has no 10% penalty for accessing the funds before age 59 and a half. Oh, and the average historical returns are 5 to 7% annually. Tax-free. Super Roths also lock in gains, which means you don't lose your money when the market is down. Sounds incredible, right? Sounds super? Super Roths are the way of the future, specifically your future. To see if you qualify for a Super Roth, go online to thesuperroth.com.
Has your heater busted, computer crashed, appliance broken? Then you need ARW Home.
Life's been pretty worry-free since I got coverage with ARW Home. Don't waste thousands of dollars on air conditioning, appliance repair, and replacements. Save that money with ARW Home. Protection plans that cover household appliances, systems, and electronics.
My air conditioning broke on a Sunday. I called ARW, and they came out and fixed it right away.
Get your free quote today. Call or go to arwhome.com now.
I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
And we're back. We really didn't go nowhere, but wanted to play you guys a little video. But I want to share some notes or some of the information that Kevin Garnett, just to kind of piggyback on this generation thinking for some reason the league wasn't that good or Michael Jordan had. This is just more fodder for, honestly, I'm just going to say it, La Media. And this is what this comes down to. So let's share the screen and show you a little bit about what was being said. So you guys, this is what Kevin Garnett had to say. He actually said that you would have never survived. The guys playing today, just keeping in a buck, you'd have never survived. It was too physical, and guess what? The league had to come off of it, exactly what I was talking about, for the flow of movement to be able to have scoring go up, which got the corporate people involved, which is why we like to sit here and watch kind of the rat race of the high-paced game right now. And Kevin Garnett went on to say a few other things that I want to share with you. I want to show, where is it at? He went on to say a few other things, and he talked about the very thing that I talked about the freedom of movement. Even Paul George took aim at Anthony Edwards after criticizing Michael Jordan's generation. He had something to say about it, where apparently he wasn't happy. And apparently what he said was, this was in an interview, and you got to remember one thing about Ant-Man. Ant-Man was getting a lot of hype because he looked like Michael Jordan. Folks that don't know, this is the reason why Ant-Man was getting a lot of the buzz, because people were getting excited thinking, is this the guy? Is this the guy that's going to be like the GOAT, like the guy we remember? And he's not. Michael Jordan was another alien. The Michael Jordan from '84, this is the one thing that I'll agree with Gilbert Arenas about when he mentioned that Kobe is nothing like the Michael Jordan of '84 to '93. He's right. But let me finish this quote and then I'll get back to this point. So let's see. Well, we already know the interview that he said. He didn't watch it back in the day. This is what Anthony Edwards said. So I can't speak on it. He should have just stopped right there. You can't speak on it. And they say it was tougher back than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. This is so what we think, what we call the step back, that's a travel. They did that back in the day. It was called a travel, by the way. The Euro step is a travel in the NBA back then. Your fundamental game had to be solid. A lot of what you see today is athleticism, but they lack the fundamentals because the game has gotten younger, not better. Isaiah Thomas made some comments about it, and he was right. What you see is a proclivity, I can't talk no more, for three-point shooting, a proclivity. For three-point shooting, there's an emphasis on that. And people are shooting shots from further away. It doesn't mean that these are good shots. A lot of these shots are terrible shots. But that's what they promote based on analytics. It's still a bad shot for the most part, for most people. Not named Steph Curry or Damian Lillard. That's pretty much the only guys that I want to see shooting those deep shots. Trae Young will make it every once in a while, but a lot of it is just bad shots. Klay Thompson has to heat up, but he's not shooting it from way back there all of us. He's more catch and shoot, but if he gets hot, he's hot. So, but the point is, this is what he said. So Paul George Sr. on his Podcast P platform, he's talking about what I said. He says this: I thought it was kind of disrespectful to the game. It was a very immature comment. He said, obviously, Anthony Edwards is super talented and has a bright future ahead, but the game has grown so much, you have to respect those who paved the way. The game has grown on an international level. In America, the game has grown because of what Paul George just said. Because Michael Jordan took the league by storm. Magic and Bird saved it. Jordan elevated it to the stratosphere. The 1998 NBA Finals with Game 6 with Michael Jordan and the Bulls versus the Utah Jazz is still the number one rated NBA game of all time. Still, to this day. So people knew what we were watching. We were watching greatness. We were watching skill. We were watching will take over. See, these guys in this AAU game, it's all about three-point shooting, bad shots, and this is a part of this generation. So they disrespect guys that are just taking one-step, two-step dribble. Dribble, pull up. Now it's all of this. You can't do that back then because the game, you had to pass the rock or the veterans would get on your behind. So this is what he's talking about. And Magic Johnson, the great Magic Johnson, said this after Ant-Man's response. He said this: I just never respond to a guy who has never won a championship. Boom. See, championships is what define greatness, not championship appearances. Let me say that again. Winning championships is what defined greatness. And having that key superstar guy making that play, making that shot, making that steal, making that bucket is what it really went to. It wasn't the guy that was just throwing them the ball. Everybody's like, oh, look, he just made a great pass. No, it was the guy that was finishing in traffic or making the big shot off the dribble is who we looked at being the guy to do it on a consistent basis. Not you make a shot because the star passed you the ball once in a while. No, you were carrying the groceries and bringing them home and cooking them. So Magic says there's really nothing to say. He didn't win a college championship because Ant-Man only played one season at Georgia. I don't even know if he won a high school championship. This was the great Irving Magic Johnson, who is 1A point guard, Steph Curry 1B at this point. Kevin Garnett, again, let's go back to what KG said. He was known for his physical play during his career. He also played against Michael Jordan and learned very early to keep your mouth closed because Jordan embarrassed him and Isaiah Ryder, an athletic two guard who had the East Bay Funk dunk and won the slam dunk championship during Michael Jordan's era, was a very athletic, strongly built two guard. There's no skill though. That's another guy with no skill. But KG says, if I'm being honest, bro, I don't think anybody in this generation could have played like 20 years ago. He said on his latest episode of Ticket and the Truth with him and Paul Pierce. Back then, this is what we're saying, you couldn't pull off a triple step back. That's a travel. And if you shot that blank, it had to go in. You know why? Because we were all about efficiency back in the day. And it was so effing hard, is what KG says. A Hall of Famer, NBA champion. Anything's possible! Kevin Garnett. Anthony Edwards has a lot to learn and needs to grow up quickly. If he is going to be able to take advantage of the promise that I believe he actually has. But for now, man. Humble yourself, young man. Grow up and understand. Sometimes you just need to be quiet when grown folks is talking. Sometimes that's what needs to happen. You're 23 years old. Now, let me play you guys another video that goes along, which is even more ridiculous. Even more ridiculous. This is Doc Rivers' son. Yeah, Doc Rivers' son, Austin Rivers, who is trying to make his point, thinking that the game is so skilled today. Watch this.
Kids are doing Euro steps in third grade now because they already had access to it. You know what I'm saying? It's just like the evolution of timing of these kids learning things at an earlier age is just, you can't argue it. So Giannis, or bro, if you put myself in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, shit, I'd probably be in Cleveland with like a red coat last year. I would have been a top 75 player of all time. But that's not a flex. I'm supposed to do that based off of my skill. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. If you gave those guys the same level of skill, or I'm sorry, the same level of training and know-how, those guys would have been even more supreme players. Like kids are doing Euro steps in third grade now because they already had access to it. Do you understand? It's just like the evolution of timing of these kids.
So I want you to think about what he just said and the problem with what he said. Because the evolution of training has arisen, for whatever reason, you believe that that makes you a greater basketball player. Being allowed to get away with bad habits because of the lessening of rules does not mean you're more skillful, and it damn sure don't make you a better basketball player. So just some of the folks that were destroying Austin Rivers' comment, well, he thinks he would have been a red coat. So does anyone who has watched Allen Iverson, we know who had one of those coats, Kevin Johnson, KJ, who should be in the Hall of Fame, Mark Jackson is a guy that should be in the Hall of Fame. He was the NBA Rookie of the Year. His assist, I think he's maybe fourth or fifth all time in assists, even to this point. People forget how good of a basketball player Mark Jackson was when he was with the New York Knicks. And Mark wasn't no uber athletic guy, but he understood how to post you up. He understood spacing, and he understood how to set his teammates up to be effective. And the before mentioned Rod Strickland, Steve Nash, Sam Cassell, Ron Harper, Nick Van Exel, all of those guys would literally embarrass Austin Rivers. And here's one of the big points. I don't know if you guys ever heard about Magic Johnson's. He used to have a run back at UCLA back when he was playing, and Paul Pierce talked about this once on the show, and he talked about how Magic was not losing, and with his team. Now, this was a guy who had been retired for a number of years. Well, there's another story about how Magic had a run, and Wilt Chamberlain, the late great Wilt Chamberlain, came into play, had been retired probably 13, 15 years, if not longer, came to play. Wilt was on the team with the UCLA kids. Magic had all the pros. Magic called a goaltending, I believe, against Wilt, because Magic's uber competitive. And Wilt said, okay. He called some kind of something on Wilt, and Wilt said, all right, cool. They say the guys that were there, and it was NBA historians, said, I think it was Hubie Brown and maybe some other guys that said, Magic and them couldn't score again. Again. Wilt blocked everything. Wouldn't let them score again. Now, this is Wilt Chamberlain, retired, didn't have access to even the medicine and the training that even Magic had in his time. But a great player is still a great player in any era. The game is still put the ball in the basket, stop the guy from getting the ball in the basket. That's still the game. Wilt was dominant when we talk about greatest careers and statistics, and everybody loves to talk about LeBron, he's 40,000, he's got 10,000 rebounds. He also has the most turnovers ever. Did LeBron ever average 50 and 25 a season? No. This is what Wilt Chamberlain did. And he gets routinely disrespected by the new generation because they don't know his game. They don't know him. So that's the problem with today's youth, because you don't know someone. So I got one little more thing I want to play for you guys before I get out of here. But this lack of just understanding it drives me crazy. I'll let you go to one more commercial, guys. I appreciate you for tuning in. I promise to do more of these shows. And I appreciate all of the subscribers. Please, if you come in, please like and subscribe and tell a friend. Wipe your feet when you come into the house. Tell a friend about Sports Bucks with Steve. We appreciate the over 9,600 now subscribers that we have. I really, really appreciate that. I was never on major television or anything like that. So to have people that come in and support and like what I do, it is really, really, truly appreciated. So I just want to thank you guys for being a part of this story and being a part of Sports Bucks journey. Let me play one more video for you guys. Got to pay the bills, and we want to thank our sponsors.
Are you looking for an affordable yet exceptional virtual healthcare solution for your workforce? Have you been thinking of a way to attract and keep a good team of employees? Well, your solution is here with My Virtual Docs. From virtual primary, urgent, and mental health care, a free and low-cost medicine formulary, and even pet care, My Virtual Docs has got everyone in the household covered. My Virtual Docs allows employers to provide employees and their families with convenient access to the care they need, on demand without having to miss valuable work time. Our strong network of providers and pharmacies means patients have unlimited access to their providers virtually with no copay, anywhere they can get online and have their medicines delivered right to their doorstep. By simply logging into their portal, patients can make appointments, visit with doctors, fill prescriptions, and more. And it keeps getting better. With the use of our smart app, Burn, your employees will be inspired to earn dollars while they burn calories. Who wouldn't want to get paid to go for a walk? Here at My Virtual Docs, we're committed to helping employers help employees and their families achieve optimal health and wellness with exceptional care at an affordable price. Visit myvirtualdocs.com for more details.
Recover Now is a national campaign aimed at the education and awareness of the devastating effects of opioid and heroin abuse and curbing drug and alcohol addiction in the United States. Recover Now is sponsored by treatment facilities nationwide. Many of them have been where you are, and they want to help by spreading a message of hope and recovery. They're working hand in hand with major insurance companies nationwide that can help you or a loved one get clean in 7 to 30 days. Recover Now is embarking on a national outreach campaign on TV and radio to promote anti-addiction messages. So if you, a loved one, or someone you know has a problem with drugs or alcohol, do not wait. A new life for you could be 30 days away. Call us right now. I promise this call can change your life. Sponsored by the Detox and Treatment Helpline.
800-936-5087. 800-936-5087. That's 800-936-5087.
And we're back at it again. And listen, we're gonna take this thing on home and wrap this up. I promise you guys I'll have another show coming up really, really soon. That one will probably be called Le Clutch, because I want to address Gilbert Arenas, Nick Never Right, Dre need to stay and get somewhere and go play, Mon Green, and this consistent goalpost moving and fake paid for narratives. So that's coming. And if you don't like it, the door's to the right, door's to the left. But for those who appreciate truth, you're going to keep getting that from Sports Bucks with Steve, whether it's popular or not. So I just want to thank you guys for once again tuning in. Please support our sponsors, myvirtualdocs.com, BigWealthPartners.com. The Super Roth is a big deal where you can overfund using an IUL to put away more and more money for your retirement. Stay tuned for more and more information. And I just want to thank you guys once again for being here on this ride and on this journey. This is Sports Bucks. I'm going to see you when I see you. And remember, keep your mouth closed when grown folks is talking. Sports Bucks, for the love of the game, we got to stop.